Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kyoto Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans who can't wait for October 31st. I know I'm not the only one excited about Halloween, but that's actually not what I'm referring to in today's video. October 31st also happens to be the trade deadline for the NFL coming up. And it's been a pretty hot topic among Chargers fans, all NFL fans the last couple of weeks, seeing as we are seeing some trends, okay, in the NFL, indicating that this could be a pretty wild ride when it comes to the trade deadline in this particular season. And I think that we can attribute a lot of that to this young man right here, Caleb Williams. It's the tank for Caleb Williams season. A lot of teams have decided to throw in the towel early in hopes of perhaps grabbing their quarterback of the future, thus opening up a very interesting opportunity for the Chargers and any other team that wants to build via trade going forward. And there's some juicy names out there, guys, that I think the Chargers would be wise to target in terms of a trade. Again, I would say the Chargers, more often than not, it's not very characteristic for them to go after a big-name player, especially around the trade deadline. But given the surrounding circumstances of this particular year, with the particular players that could be available, with the particular backgrounds that could link them to, or that could link them to the Chargers, I think it's a fair shot, man. I think it's a fair possibility something could go down. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys something like 15 different players that I think the Chargers should at least consider via trade coming up here in the deadline on the 31st. And you guys can follow along in the comment section. Let me know some of the guys that you agree with, disagree with, and even add some names to that list in which the Chargers should pursue. Now, before we do get started, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you guys haven't joined Underdog yet, what are you doing? Go in and enjoy the NFL season the way it was meant to be enjoyed, with fantasy freaking football. And you can do that with the best fantasy platform on the web, Underdog Fantasy. Use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100. And if you're a new guy, if you're just new coming around here, man, we got an awesome special for you newcomers. A half-yard special by using code DIRECTOR. Basically a free entry right there. Should make things a lot easier in your odds. So good luck to everybody out there, guys. Thank you so much for all the support and supporting the channel by hosting Underdog Fantasy. Now, before we do get started, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into these trades. Lights, camera, action. My top trade targets for your Los Angeles Chargers in 2023. And again, the table has been set. The Caleb Williams sweepstakes is underway. Several teams out there, guys. Several teams looking like they're staring down the bottom of the barrel like, oh my God, it's time to tank for Caleb Williams. We're going to go out on a sailing spree. And some of the reports I'm hearing, guys, and I'm reading online, absolutely insane as to some of the players that could become available because of these situations. Caleb Williams, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. There's a lot you can do with in terms of building around these players. And of course, it's going to open up opportunities for teams looking to acquire talent. So let's go ahead. I got 15 names. Let's drop right into it. Could be a little bit of a longer video. Hopefully not. We're going to start at number 15 and work our way up to the top, okay? And again, I invite you guys in the comment section below. You can let me know, director, I like this one, and I don't like this one. You can also give details as to how much do you think the trade compensation is going to be. The Chargers would have to give up some form of draft capital more than likely, and maybe what the money situation could look like. I kind of peered at everything from the surface, so we should get an okay idea as to what the Chargers would be getting themselves into with any of these trades. So we're going to start here with Michael Carter, running back for the New York Jets. Raise your hand if you remember Michael Carter, especially from fantasy football. I certainly remember Michael Carter. And it's because this dude is actually a pretty awesome running back in the NFL that just so happened to be buried on the depth chart behind Breece Hall. Now, Dalvin Cook. Too many cooks in the kitchen. In this case, Dalvin Cook. Ha-ha! I'm a genius. I'm a comedic genius. This actually opens up an opportunity for Michael Carter to move on to greener pastures, greener than the New York Jets can provide, even with those green uniforms, and provide maybe a starting role or even a nice, immediate backup role with another team. And I think the Chargers could definitely be among those teams interested in a talent like Michael Carter could provide. The Chargers have been very deadly serious about the running back 2 situation for a couple of seasons now. I do like what Joshua Kelly's provided, given that he is in a contract season, given that the Chargers maybe haven't felt out what they want in Isaiah Spiller and a lot of these other guys out here that could really develop into that role quite nicely. If the Chargers want a guy that's got a lot of tape that looks really like borderline RB1, backing up a Austin Eckler, maybe even taking on more responsibility going into next season as the RB1, I think Michael Carter's worth a shot. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. I think it would be maybe a later round pick, definitely not a lot of money. I think Michael Carter's worth a shot here, but I have him at 15 because I think there's way more appropriate and important positions that the Chargers can be targeting at this point in time. Because again, if you're going to be trading, you're going to be giving up draft capital, be adding to your roster. Some positions might be above others. So let's actually go ahead and move on to another position I think could be important. And maybe Chargers reuniting with tight end Hunter Henry, currently residing in New England. Dudes, I don't know if in my lifetime, maybe, I don't know. I've seen the New England Patriots as down bad as they are right now. I've never seen Bill Belichick, palm to the forehead as many times as I've seen in this last game. It sounds like there's an opportunity for the Patriots to do what they love to do best, and that's acquire mid-round picks for old Big Bill to go out there and try and find some mid-round talent. That is something that you can expect if you were to reunite with a Hunter Henry. Now, the Chargers, yes, already have tight ends in Gerald Everett and Donald Parham, et cetera, that I think are very serviceable for this season. But Hunter Henry, when paired with Justin Herbert, is a different beast. And a lot of people will say, Hunter Henry's been watched. He's not great. He was terrible in New England. I just don't think that they knew how to utilize him. Or if they did, they just didn't. For whatever reason. They also had too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of talent at the tight end position. They had Jonnu Smith for a while, now Mike Gesicki, who you could throw in on this list as well. Chargers could go after a Mike Gesicki at number 14 here. But in the end, I think the Chargers, they already have chemistry with Hunter Henry, know that he works well with Justin Herbert, and with Gerald Everett entering his contract year, maybe reuniting with Hunter Henry is not a bad idea for the future. He is, I think, 29 at this point. The Patriots would have to eat some of that cap, which is more than likely with a lot of these trades here, but it is something that I think is possible and something that I think Chargers fans have been talking about a lot in the last couple of days. So Hunter Henry at number 14. Moving on, we're going to go to number 13 here, as I've heard rumblings that the Carolina Panthers may be preparing to move on from this guy, Jeremy Chin, one of the more talented safeties in the NFL. And if you guys know the Chargers right now, there is a bit of a situation at safety, I would say. Alohi Gilman and Derwin James. Obviously, Derwin being the best safety in the league certainly does help. Alohi Gilman has definitely been a very nice option for the Chargers since the later half of last season. I think safety looks good. But how deep is safety for this team? Not very. I think it's okay. We saw some guys step in, like Marlowe last week. He definitely had a nice game. But the Chargers, in terms of like top tier talent, outside of Derwin, there's not much there, right? Alohi Gilman's going into that contract season, and there is rumblings that the Carolina Panthers are looking to maybe not move on from Jeremy Chin, but they're looking for wide receiver talent in a guy that could be pretty reliable. The Chargers, it seems like it would be more like a player-for-player swap. The Chargers could be in a position to make something like that happen, but it's something I wanted to throw out there because, again, the Chargers could use help at safety. This is one of the better safeties you're going to find out there. It would be a different kind of trade for the team, though. Less so on draft capital and more so on a player-for-player swap. And would I trade Keenan for him? No. Would I trade Quentin Johnson? No. Josh Palmer? I don't know. Maybe. You would have to weigh that out for yourselves, but I wanted to throw his name out there on the list, even if it's a little bit lower because of the kind of trade you would be asking the Chargers to execute here. Now, this next name might shock some of you guys to see on this list, okay? Because we've talked extensively about this position group for the Chargers, what I think the future of this position group is going to be. And honestly, I think we're not in a bad spot right now. I really don't, especially given, what the Chargers have coming up in terms of, rookie talent. That being said, we're going to go ahead and entertain the idea of the Chargers trading for number 13 from Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. Okay, now let me explain myself before I get thrown in the pit of fire by Chargers fans, okay? I know that we're already in a situation with an age 30 wide receiver named Mike. Mr. Mike Williams, okay? And I know a lot of us have given the opportunity and the choice that we would probably keep Mike Williams instead of Mike Evans because of, the history with the team, the fit, and the chemistry built with Justin Herbert and all that kind of stuff. I hate to say it, and I might be wrong. There might be a way for the Chargers to figure it out. I think the money is so complicated revolving around Mike Williams that the Chargers may be forced to move on from him, especially with the injury on top of that. A torn ACL, it's going to complicate things. Now, one thing that was pretty evident the first game after Mike Williams' exit was the kind of football that the Chargers want to play. They like having that big playability guy, the tall receiver that can go up there, contested catch situations, make big plays, in some senses bail out your quarterback when need be, really playing those matchups. Chargers kind of have that in Quentin Johnson right now, even though that's not his forte, and he's also a rookie. If the Chargers want to maintain their identity with their wide receiver group, led by Keenan Allen, now a Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson, if they want to add that element back into the team, I don't know if there's many other options out there like Mike Williams than, let's say, a Mike Evans. It just so happens that Mike Evans could be on the trading block as well. I think he wanted to get a contract done at the top of the offseason. Didn't happen. We all waited to see if it would happen between then and kickoff. Still didn't happen. He's on a contract year. It sounds like the Bucs may be ready to move on. The Chargers could persuade the Bucs to part with the man and that contract for a late round pick, which again, a lot of you guys will say, what about the money? What about the money? The money in this situation, you'd be grabbing Mike Evans for, half a season. The Bucs would be eating a lot of that cap, and the Chargers would be put in a position where they could offer a lower contract to an older wide receiver, like maybe they were hoping to do with Mike Williams, now with the Mike Evans. It's kind of a stretch, I know, but I'm telling you guys right now, it feels like the Chargers, in terms of maintaining their identity with that wide receiver, archetype of Mike Williams, it could be pretty important to them. And Mike Evans, I think, provides a unique perspective or a unique, solution to the Chargers if they want to maintain that this season. Okay? There it is. Number 12, Mike Evans. Next up, Chargers. We already talked about the situation at safety. I think there's another guy out there that might be going overlooked because of his injury status, his health status right now, in Budda Baker. Now, Budda, I think there was a situation money-wise this last season where he wanted a lot of money. I don't know if it happened. I don't think it happened. But unfortunately, he did go down with injury not too long after that. I think it was something like week 3, week 4, or maybe just week 2. It might have been week 2. Either way, he was down with injury. Had to have been earlier than that, though, because he's been on IR. My point being, he's coming off IR, I think, very soon. Like, I think as soon as this week. Very, very soon. And the Cardinals do seem like they're ready to move on from some players as well. There's a whole situation with, Murray. There's a whole situation with, I think the coaching. There's a lot of things going on in the background with the Arizona Cardinals that I do think we've been hearing rumors, at least, that they could be moving off from some top-tier talent. Budda Baker would be an awesome option for the Chargers, seeing as how they like to use their linebackers/safeties. Budda loves to play in the box. He can play safety. He can basically do what Derwin does at a lower level. And having 2 Derwin Jameses, that could be pretty nice for a Los Angeles Chargers. That being said, you would have to talk about money. You would have to figure out a long-term solution for a Budda Baker. There would be complications there. But the Chargers, if they wanted to have a unique perspective or a unique aspect to their defense and having 2 very, very talented safeties, guys like Jeremy Chin, guys like Budda Baker could certainly be a good option there. How much would he be in terms of cap? I don't know. How much would he be in terms of, draft capital? Also, I don't know. But it's a player that I think is out there and available that the Chargers could target. Speaking of which, another guy that I think the Chargers should be targeting right now is this man, Troy Hill, who I think currently is also a Carolina Panther, who are down bad. Could they be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? I don't think so, but I do think they could be in a rebuild sort of mind, trying to grab young talent behind their now young rookie quarterback. Troy Hill has chemistry with Brandon Staley, of course, with the Los Angeles Rams system. He's a guy that we mentioned, I think, even this last offseason. I think he was just recently signed by Carolina. That I don't know if I've heard much about him after that signing. That being said, the Chargers, now having to part ways with J.C. Jackson, might find themselves in a situation where they do need to add more corner depth, make more corner talent. They do have guys with expiring contracts like Michael Davis, Asante Samuel Jr. This team all of a sudden might be in a pretty big pinch in terms of having to grab cornerbacks right away. I would imagine in the draft next season it's going to be a high priority. I would imagine with trades it's going to be a high priority. I would imagine with free agents it's going to be a high priority, even with the guys that we currently have on the roster. I think Asante stays. Davis is kind of up in the air for me. If you want to grab a guy that can solve that issue both this season and maybe into the future, I think Troy Hill is definitely not a bad option there. All right, let's go ahead and move forward here. At number 10, getting here into the top 10, that was Troy Hill. Now at number 9, we're going to add another receiver option for Justin Herbert after losing a Mike Williams, but we're going to take a different route here. I think the Chargers would definitely not be in a bad spot adding another speed option for Justin Herbert. I think that should be the future of the team in some way, shape, or form. And I think they started kind of building that already. Quentin Johnson, he's got decent speed behind him. We'll say a bit above a Mike Williams, right? You got Darius Davis, one of the faster players that you found in the draft last season. He's got a lot of upside for the team. Maybe continue to stack on top of that. We got Jalen Guyton coming back, hopefully. Mecole Hardman is a player that we've watched for several years now as Chargers fans, except he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, up until recently. It feels like, and I've heard reports and I've heard, read articles and stuff that the Jets may be looking to move on from him, that maybe it wasn't quite the fit that they were hoping for. It could be a very good fit for the Chargers, I would say. He kind of reminds me of a faster, like Johnson, with Guyton back in the day in Herbert's rookie season. I think Mecole is definitely one of the fastest guys you're going to find out there in terms of availability, in terms of trade for wide receiver. And I think that he would fit in terms of what the Chargers would utilize him as, maybe not as a featured weapon so much, but a lot of upside in terms of stretching the field. I think the Chargers would be very wise to at least consider a Mecole Hardman in the future. And you guys already know my thoughts in terms of wide receiver and for the Chargers and adding that kind of talent. If you're going to be adding a guy, try adding a guy with speed that you can grow into the future. That can you start, maintaining and building the identity in terms of let's get Justin Herbert in that big arms of weapons that can utilize his unique talents. All right. There's number 9, Mecole Hardman. We're going to move a little bit faster until we get to the top 3. At number 8, now you guys are going to see a few players from the Chicago Bears back to back here. And that's because I think the Bears are among the top teams that are likely to really bottom out here in the next couple of weeks. And what I mean by that is they're going to sell, dude. I think the Bears are going to sell in and around and before the trade deadline pretty aggressively. And they've got a lot of talent I think other teams would be interested in. Are they going after Caleb Williams? I think they're definitely in the conversation there. Not that Justin Fields isn't something they can build around, but you got Caleb Williams staring you in the face. It might not be a bad idea either way to try and go out there, grab some draft capital. There's several players I think the Chargers could be looking at, especially considering that the Bears still have an adaptive Vic Fangio-style defense, all right? There's familiarity there with the personnel. Now, the first guy I want to talk about here is Jaylen Johnson, cornerback, who I think is coming into the last year of his rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken. These are the kind of situations you're looking for if you're a Chargers fan hoping for a trade here before the deadline. Very nice corner. I think 6 feet tall, decently fast. He's been very good. I think he graded out pretty well, too, on PFF to start the season this year. He may have had a minor injury that he's coming back from this week. It's something to definitely consider if you're the Chargers that had to part ways with J.C. Jackson. How good do you feel about the depth all of a sudden? How good do you feel about pushing Jasir Taylor into that nickel role? This is a guy I feel can play outside, inside nickel. I think there's a lot of familiarity with what the Chargers would be asking him to do schematically. This would be a very intelligent trade. How much would it cost? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and guess like a day 2 pick, so nothing too terrible. But it's also somebody that you can grow with, that you can, if you were going to be looking for a corner in the 2nd or 3rd round anyway, this kind of talent would definitely be a nice add in those rounds. So I like that. Jaylen Johnson, certainly an option there for the Chargers. Another Bear to definitely consider here that would make me pretty ecstatic, if I'm being honest, is Eddie Jackson. Now, I don't know how old Eddie Jackson is. I think he only has a couple years left in his contract as well. He may be around 30 years old, maybe actually 29. So I think he's about to get to that age 30 season. This is not a bad situation for the Chargers. Again, there's going to be scheme familiarity. from Eddie Jackson. I think he's one of the most underrated safeties out there that you're going to find today in the NFL. And I think for what the Chargers need in terms of a guy that you pair up with a Derwin James, Eddie could be that guy that creates a lot of opportunity for the Chargers in terms of fit, in terms of compensation. I don't think he's going to cost that much. In terms of contract, the Bears, again, would have to eat a good amount of that contract in order to make a trade like this happen. I don't know. I feel like out of the guys that we've talked about so far, I feel like Eddie Jackson is a great fit for this team that could very realistically be acquired by the Chargers to help the team not only this season, but going forward the next 2 or 3 years. So Eddie Jackson, imagining this guy paired up with Derwin James is very exciting. It frees up Derwin quite a bit to move around. You can ask Eddie to play several different parts of the field as well. I like this pairing a lot. But I would say the most intriguing player from the Bears that you could convince me they're moving on from, I don't know if it's as likely as the other two, considering that I think he was just signed to a new contract, is going to be tight end Cole Kmet. And again, this one's a bit of a stretch for me because of the recent contract. But again, you never know with the Bears. You never know. They've been a trade partner of the Chargers in the past. I threw his name on here at number 5 or at number 6. If available, I think Cole would be a great tight end to grow into the Chargers system. We've seen him do some pretty good stuff with Justin Fields, okay? That's a good sign. Justin Fields is not the kind of guy that's going to make a tight end go crazy, okay? Justin Herbert, on the other hand, you pair him up with a 6'6" target, decently fast, great hands, good route runner. I think you got yourself an upgraded Hunter Henry on your hands if you add a Cole Kmet. And nothing against Hunter Henry, but the money would be, you'd actually have to pay more for Hunter Henry than you would a Cole Kmet if you were to acquire him trade this season. And that's because, again, the Bears would have to eat some of that contract. They would save a good amount, but you're talking in and around the average of what you're paying like a Gerald Everett, actually, to get a Cole Kmet on this team. Is that worth it to you guys? Maybe. Is it worth it to me? I certainly would think so. So tight end, wide receiver, safety, corner, you guys are kind of seeing the trend here. Of the tight ends, I think Cole Kmet is very high for me. And I think, again, you can convince me the Chargers could maybe wedge him away from the Bears, but this one's a little bit more of a stretch for me, okay? Speaking of stretch, let's get into our top 5, okay? And this next one's probably not too much of a stretch, but the other guys, we're going to have to get aggressive if we want to add them to the team. Let's get here into the top 5, starting with Marquise Hollywood Brown. Bring Hollywood home to Hollywood, baby. I've been a big fan of Hollywood Brown since he was drafted. He's been a big player, you know, kind of reminiscent of like a Zay Flowers type with the Baltimore Ravens, now with the Arizona Cardinals. There's a lot here, man, that the Chargers can work with. Of the players that you're looking at on this list, I think Marquise Brown is by far and away the fastest. I think he offers a lot of what you can ask of a guy like Zay Flowers. I know a lot of Chargers fans wanted Zay Flowers. I wanted Zay Flowers this season. Did not happen. The Chargers still have a growing talent in Quentin Johnson, yet to be seen what his contributions are going to be this season. But if you want a guy this season that will make a big difference at wide receiver, that will make a big difference going forward in the future, I think Hollywood Brown is definitely worth a look. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, the Arizona Cardinals, there is talks that they could be moving some pieces, and they've got other receivers that are starting to emerge that I think could definitely wedge a Marquise Brown off of the roster if given proper compensation, which I think wouldn't be anything too crazy either. Now, at the very most, a day 2 pick, right? A day 2 pick, in my opinion, to add a talent like Marquise Hollywood Brown, one of the fastest players in the NFL, to pair up with Justin Herbert to really stretch the field. I don't know, man. We talk a lot about the speed aspect of wide receivers on this channel. And the biggest thing I always say is that you got to be more than speed at the wide receiver position. Speed separates you from the pack, but it's what you do outside of that that really matters. The route running, the hands, the availability. I see all of that from Marquise Brown, and I think he's got a lot of tape, enough tape to prove it. I think this would be a very realistic option for the Chargers, and if they really do want to add to that wide receiver room, this is kind of where I would start. Let's grab that speed, baby. We talked about the speed with Mecole Hardman. This is a way even better option, in my opinion. This is a guy that you can wedge into that, wide receiver 3-4 role if you wanted to. Marquise could be a big part of this offense with Justin Herbert. Big, big part. Okay? All right. Next up, at number 4. You guys aren't going to believe this. You guys aren't going to believe I even put this guy on the list, man. But this is something absolutely crazy. We're in unprecedented times right now, right? This particular team does look like they are tanking, and they are tanking hard. Let's talk about the potential of the Chargers adding Hitman Harrison Smith to the roster. Okay, I'll be honest. I got this idea from Steve, a Guilty Uncharged on Twitter. I was like, how crazy would that be, man? How crazy would that be? And at the top of my brain, I was like, nah, dude, there's no way. There's absolutely no way that the Chargers would ever have a chance at Harrison Smith. And we might be right. This might be a complete pipe dream. This man is royalty in Minnesota. This man has a contract up until his age 36 season. That's how much they love this man. Is there any way in hell the Chargers could pry him away from Minnesota? I think so, actually. And I think it's because, again, of the situation we're looking at. We're looking at the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. We're looking at building a young team. You got the oldest, I would say, hopefully the oldest member of your team in Harrison Smith, who's still playing at a very high level, but does have kind of a fat contract, okay? For his age, I would say. There is a way that the Chargers can make this work. For one, you would have to be willing to pair with, let's say, a mid-round pick, maybe even a higher mid-round pick for an aging player, which not a lot of Chargers fans would be behind. I'm telling you guys right now, Harrison Smith still playing at a super high level. The thought of this man playing with the Derwin James is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, the things that you could do with Harrison Smith this season and for the next couple of years, okay? So you have to wedge him away via capital. You would also have to figure out a way to renegotiate this contract, okay? This contract, I think, goes until 2026, 2025, something like that. Something pretty far in the future, like age 36 for Harrison Smith. It's a pretty dramatic contract for a player his age. All right. The thing that you do have working with you, though, is that the Vikings would have to eat a decent amount of this contract, where I think it actually averages somewhere to closer like $13 or $15 million a season, well below a Derwin James, right? And because of that, I think that's something I would absolutely do for this defense. You get these two guys together, sky's the limit. Honestly, sky is the limit what you can do with Hitman Harry on the Los Angeles Chargers. Is it possible? Less likely. I will say it's less likely, but it is something out there, man. The Minnesota Vikings, they are tanking. There's talk that they could be moving on from Kirk Cousins as soon as the next couple of weeks. They could be moving on from some of their best talent on this roster, because this team is one of those teams where I'm like, yeah, they are probably, gunning for Caleb Williams at this point. And that is something you can build around, especially if you have extra draft capital from kind of restarting at this point. Okay? And even if you don't make it to the number one overall pick, you're going to need draft capital to trade up into that number one pick, if at all possible. All right. That being said, let's get into my top three. Before we do that, honorable mention, because I've been hearing these names a lot past couple of days in terms of talking trade. Davante Adams, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Simmons. I think you are going to hear their names a lot because I do think they are available. I think Davante Adams, he's spoken out that he's not happy with the team. He wants a new look. He wants a new identity, whatever. I think there's a pretty good chance that Davante Adams does get traded. Will it be to the Chargers? You're also hearing a lot about the Denver Broncos. That team is in full rebuild. I think of the teams in the NFL, in the AFC, you got the Denver Broncos that are tanking for Caleb Williams. And you got the Chicago Bears and I would say the Minnesota Vikings tanking for Caleb Williams. However, these players are all in the AFC West. Those trades are very, very hard to swing. Very hard to swing. Sometimes it's weird, like, hey, we got him for less than I thought, and it's an AFC West rival. What's going on? Sometimes you see that, but more often than not, it would be very difficult for the Chargers to get a star-studded player like Davante Adams, like Justin Simmons, like Jerry Jeudy from an AFC West rival. A division rival, it's very tough to do that. However, that being said, at number 3, I do have one player that I would kind of sell the barn for. Okay, Pat Surtain, the second. Patrick Surtain, born of royalty. Do we start a trend in the Los Angeles Chargers defensive back room where you must be descended from royal blood? Pat Surtain the second. Asante Samuel Jr. Let's get Darrelle Revis Jr. out here in a couple of seasons. I don't even know if he's out there playing. Either way, guys, this is definitely a player where you're talking in these top 3 guys, these top 3 options, you're talking significant draft capital. Okay, to pry away Pat Surtain from the Denver Broncos, you are talking multiple first-round picks. I would say at least 2 and some change, right? You're probably talking a player or 2. You're talking contract. You're talking a lot. But the big reason I think that Pat Surtain is worth it, and Pat Surtain is worth even taking the dive into the interdivision trade waters, is because what he offers this defense in particular. Brandon Staley's defense needs a couple of things. It needs a premium pass rush, which we have, and it needs a lockdown corner, which we do not. We were hoping to get that from J.C. Jackson. That didn't happen. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It blew up in our faces. maybe it's time to get very aggressive and find that guy. You need your version of Jalen Ramsey. I don't think Jalen Ramsey obviously not available right now. He's hurt. In my opinion, there's two corners at the top of the league right now. It's Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner. And the Denver Broncos have been very vocal about their implosion and who they're willing to move on from. Everybody is on the table. I think there's a good chance that Pat Surtain gets moved this season, maybe even by the trade deadline. Is it going to be to the Chargers? I'd still say less than likely, right? Less likely. But I think if it's possible, this is a guy that I don't even think about. I'm like, yeah, I think 2-3 years of high draft capital is definitely worth it to get this team defensively on track. Look at that wingspan, dude. Ridiculous. On this defense, Pat Surtain could definitely cement himself as the best corner in the league. There's my number 3. And number 2. And this was really tough for me. I went back and forth. But I think in the end, this is the way I wanted to do it. At number 2, we got Kyle Pitts. Now, there's been a lot of talk around the league that teams are gunning for Kyle Pitts. And that's because everybody in the world knows that Kyle Pitts is not in a situation that Kyle Pitts wants to be in. Everybody in the world knows that Kyle Pitts is being misused. Everybody in the world knows that the potential of Kyle Pitts is being snuffed out. It's being suffocated by Desmond Ridder and the poor quality of quarterback play on this team. Kyle Pitts is too good of a player to be on this mediocre of an offense. I'm sorry. This offense runs behind Bijan Robinson now, a generation talent at running back. That's what the Atlanta Falcons want, and that's what they got. Kyle Pitts, it's going to take more than his individual talent to shine. Bijan can do that all on his own. But Pitts, he needs a quarterback. And it's been very evident since he was drafted by this team. Piss poor offense. There's a big reason why we're always talking about Kyle Pitts. This is, again, a generation talent at tight end. You don't see a lot of guys like this. Sure, we're getting excited about upcoming prospects this upcoming season, which definitely we're going to talk about in a future video. But Kyle Pitts, man, this dude, the potential is so high. I can't even explain it to you guys. He just needs to be paired up with a quarterback that can utilize that talent. He's also at a position that, honestly, dudes, it needs time. Tight end needs time to marinate. Tight end needs time in the NFL. And now he's got that time. He's still got years in his rookie deal, of course. But this is definitely a guy that, when paired up with Justin Herbert, the sky's the limit. Justin has not had that elite tight end on the team yet. Imagine what he can do. Are we talking a Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews kind of connection? Are we talking about a Mahomes and Kelsey kind of connection? I think so. Honestly, guys, it's very rare that you see a player like this that can, be a tight end. He can be a receiver. He can be utilized in several different ways. He's elite in terms of his speed. He's elite in terms of his hands. He's elite in so many different levels. He just hasn't had the quarterback to utilize that talent. He hasn't had the offense to utilize that talent. Getting this man out of Atlanta should be the number one objective of all football fans. If it can be the Chargers, holy crap, imagine. Just imagine what this team can do with an elite tight end like Kyle Pitts. Now, the reason that he's on this list as well, that I was hoping to maybe make him a little bit higher, is because of his situation. The next guy is going to cost a lot more draft capital. I think you can get Kyle Pitts for a first round and some change. Maybe 2 first-round picks. Okay, but I think more than likely, you could convince the Falcons to move on from him for a first round and maybe a high, like a day 2 pick the next season and maybe a player, something like that. The trade package for him won't be as aggressive as the next player. His contract, which is coming up in a couple of years, will definitely not be as aggressive as the next player. Tight ends don't get paid as much. The difference he makes on this team for the money he's being paid, it would be very nice in comparison to other players in the league. Okay? There's a lot of things separating him from the pack, and the Chargers, in terms of the player, they have a lot of players at that position. Kyle Pitts just fits so much of what the Chargers need right now and what they could build in terms of an identity on offense. That's why he's at number 2. But at number 1, and without a doubt even in my mind, even with all those benefits of selecting Kyle Pitts over the next guy, at number 1, it's no doubt in my mind, Justin Jefferson has to be at the top of everybody's lists. And I even put a tweet out yesterday. Actually, we'll go find it here real quick while we're talking. We'll look at that in just a second. I put a tweet out yesterday talking about, if you could force a trade, who are you taking? Justin Jefferson, Kyle Pitts. And a lot of people were like, why are you even asking this question? Of course it's Justin Jefferson. Well, of course, there's all the other reasons that we mentioned in the video, right? Less expensive down the road, elite tight end, already have Quentin Johnston. Pitts can play wide receiver if we need to, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, you're talking about not just a generational talent this season, not just a talent that, when coming back from injury, of course, could catapult the Chargers offense to a top 2, top 3 unit in the league. But this is a guy that not just this season, but maybe for the next 10 years could be the top wide receiver in the NFL. I don't know how many receivers I've seen that are better than Justin Jefferson so far in his young career. It's been evident by all of the records and stuff that he's been breaking, but when you use your eyeballs, right, it's pretty evident that this guy's going to be special for a long, long time. Chargers fans, and again, why would the Vikings even consider moving on from this guy? They're selling. They want Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, I don't know if, yes, he could be worth something like this, maybe. It could be worth, stacking all of that draft capital for the future to build around a quarterback like that. But if there's even a whiff of evidence to suggest that Justin Jefferson could be made available, not just behind the situation by the team, but by the situation of the player, which we didn't even talk about. Justin Jefferson, it seems like he's very unhappy with the Minneapolis Colts. Or the Minnesota Colts, excuse me. With the Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, guys. We got very little sleep last night. With the Vikings. He's not happy with that situation. Both financially, both, with the record. The team has been tanking. The team cannot win any games. The team is in a bad spot. They might be losing their quarterback. Justin Jefferson, the individual, is not happy. Justin Jefferson also wants to get paid. Justin Jefferson could be made available. And if you are the Chargers, if you're any team in the NFL, you throw the bag at Minnesota. Holy crap. I honestly, guys, at this point, for Justin Jefferson, I'm throwing 3 first-round picks to start. And I think that would be worth it. You can throw in players. You can throw in, day 2, day 3 picks, whatever. Justin Jefferson would be worth it. Just imagining him with Justin Herbert. Oh. That leads me to the final tweet that I had back here. I posted this a couple of days ago. Somebody made this with AI. I said, who made this? Who made this? 1,000 people like this tweet. 1,200 people like this tweet. It's because of the thought of how significant a talent Justin Jefferson would be with this team. Unbelievable the potential you would see in a Justin Herbert to Jefferson connection. Kirk Cousins, he's no slouch. He's okay. But Justin Herbert, that's a whole different story, man. That's a whole different, ballpark. Would he be expensive? Yeah. Would it require, multiple first-round picks? Yeah. Would it be very hard to swing with all the other, factors of Chargers players that need to get paid? Yes, it would be. But is it worth it? Absolutely. But, Director, he's hurt. I don't care. It's a hamstring injury. It sounds like a bunch of phooey at this point, that they're just kind of holding him out because they know they want to trade him. They put him on IR. It feels like it's going to happen. And I want it to be the Chargers. I want Justin Jefferson to come to the Chargers. I want Justin Jefferson to have that elite quarterback. I want the Chargers to have a generational talent at wide receiver. It would be a very brave move by the team, by any team that decides to go in on this. Are the Chargers that team? I don't know. I hope so. I would do it. In a heartbeat, I would do it. But you have to wait and see. Now, my question to you guys in the comment section below, I know one of the longer videos that we put out in a while. What are some of the most realistic trades you can see on this list that the Chargers could go after? Personally, between Jefferson and Pitts, I think Pitts would be the more likely option in terms of that's a little more realistic for what the Chargers need and what they have. Even though I would choose Justin 10 out of 10 times. Of the realistic guys on this list, though, I'm thinking I'm looking at the Bears players. It feels like there's just something that works between the Chargers and the Bears. And there's players that I think they're willing to move on from. Maybe not Cole Kmet. But if I had to choose one player on this list, I think the Chargers could realistically go after that would realistically make a big difference with the team this season. It would probably be Eddie Jackson. Would you guys let me know in the comment section below what you think? Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. Who are the Chargers going after? Anybody? Nobody? Do you think that Tom Telesco has the balls to go after a guy like Justin Jefferson, Kyle Pitts? You guys let me know in the comment section below. It's the year, though. I think it's the year to go after it. I really do. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We'll catch you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty. Look, my Thule jersey came in. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Bolt up, old fam.